Welcome, everybody, to the Think and Grow podcast with Dr. Z
and Professor P.
Super excited as we have a very special guest today for our first episode of Booking It.
Yes, absolutely. So we have Ramy El-Batrawi, and he is the author of Can You Really Think and Grow Rich? And we just are looking forward to hearing from him. He's an entrepreneur, a businessman, serial entrepreneur. He's a deal maker, negotiator, and we just look forward to hearing your story and then how you can really help our readers to think and grow.
That would be our listeners.
Oh, our listeners.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I'm excited to always get the message out, inspire people to do great things with their lives. I wrote the book just specifically for that. It's not make money or anything. Everything goes to the foundation, the Napoleon Hill Foundation. But like I'm giving the book away for free until Christmas, so people can get it and get extra copies to give gifts to people, because it's an important way. It's an important message. It's an important way of me trying to get people out of a victim mentality into where they have control of what they want to do in life and become who they want to be. Because a lot of things stop people from doing things, and a lot of it is fear. And like we talked beforehand, all the way back to when I was 12 years old, when I read Think and Grow Rich for the very first time. It was such an aha moment that I don't know why I got it at 12, but I did. And I read the book 20 times. I mean, I read it over and over and over. And I was a kid that everybody beat up on school. I had no friends, so I was such an introvert. But the book really resonated and showed me that whatever I wanted out of life, I can get. And the good thing about being that young, I mean, you're young enough and dumb enough to believe anything you read. And so I didn't have the outside influence yet. I didn't have friends. I didn't have people tell me that it's impossible, that this book doesn't, you're not going to be able to achieve anything. So it's kind of good for people to get their kids on it early, because you're always bombarded by the world about how they limit you and tell you how things are impossible. So, and one of the great things about Think and Grow Rich, it says, and it is a killer of success, is procrastination. When people just put it off. So one of the things I decided, I said, okay, well, I could spend 3 more years in high school and 4 years in college. I could spend 7 years and then start, or I could start today. And what can I do in 7 years if I started today? So that's why I decided to leave home. My parents thought I was just going to be back a couple of days. I didn't know where I was going to go, but I knew it was going to be in America. So I just started hitchhiking. And luckily, this second person was going all the way down to Tampa, Florida. So this is where I started my journey. So I ended up being homeless from the age of 12 to 17, so 5 years. Last 2, I bought a $300 old car to sleep in for a couple of years. But I had the first million, 17 with the key centers. And then I was risked and learned things as I went along, and went broke again, and then made it back. And by the age of 50, I hit 50 million net worth. And then I had a much bigger goal to work with the richest man in the world, which is all in the book. So I sacrificed all to where I lost it all by the time he finally said yes. But within 7-8 years, I made my first billion. So all those are the risks that you take, and the things that you're willing to do to achieve the successes. And what I love about the book is not only a thing of success, of that, I did this and this is how I became successful, and boom. I try to take you on a full journey of ups and downs, because being successful at anything is not easy. There is so many bumps in the road. There's so many things you have to do in your journey, so many rejections, so many things that will go wrong, no matter what you try to do. I mean, stories that somebody bought some cryptocurrencies and went up and then became a billionaire. That's once in a, a lifetime that you hear. Out of 8 billion people, it happened to a couple of people. So, but the true journey is a lot of struggle, is a lot of the persistence that you have, a lot of drive, and you start by having that burning desire, Napoleon Hill states. And that's the only way you don't give up. And the way you build burning desire, which I mentioned in the book, is to really think of what you want and put a lot of emotion behind it. You know, you reflect, you think of the things, and it doesn't have to be good or bad emotion. Your mind doesn't know the difference. And I start the book with the guy who built the Coral Castle. He was able to build a castle nobody can build today with his mind. His blocks are minimum 2 tons, so 20-ton door, and nobody ever saw him work. And it wasn't thousands of years ago; it just happened 70, 80 years ago. But he was in pain because the love of his life left him on his wedding day, and that pain opened up his mind to tune in to the universe that gave him the information on how to build this castle. So it's the same thing with, and he didn't stop. He spent his lifetime to build this castle for her.
Mhm.
So the same thing. So any goal you have to mix it with emotion. You have to feel that it could be good, it could be love. Even sex is a strong emotion, or it could be pain. And even back in the day, in the 70s, those psychedelic drugs created the same thing. I don't promote drugs, but that's why some of the greatest music was written in the 70s. Or when people had heartbreaks or they broke up, they wrote some greatest love songs and stuff. It's just so emotions mixed with what you want kind of creates what you need. It makes you not stop, because you'll get, again, like I say, a lot of people even quit before they even start. They give them all these reasons why, maybe I shouldn't try because where am I going to get the money? What am I going to do? How am I going to achieve those? And then they've already talked themselves out of it before they even started. So that burning desire kind of gets you past everything.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, Ramy, it reminds me of my early on time in real estate. And I was I got back into the Think and Grow Rich book because I was in a real estate, I signed up for a coaching program, and the coaches had a mastermind program twice monthly. We had these meetings, and it just popped in my head one day. I looked over to Paul, the guy sitting next to me. I said, "Where's your next house coming from?" Right? He's like, "Good question. Where's your next house coming from?" But just creating that, and you've mentioned this in other interviews about how, fake it till you make it. That was just such a powerful thing that happened. And then, when I got my first deal, doing a fist bump and going, yeah, I got my first house, right? Creating that emotion. All those things come from exactly what you're talking about in your book and Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, because it is definitely what you put in your mind, and opportunities will come about. One of the things I put in my book is you do become what you think of most of the time. So in your mind, it does. You'll see the opportunities like you were thinking. A lot of times I don't even know what business I'm going to be in until that day, but you start thinking about real estate, so now you're into real estate. I mean, that's the opportunities came about. Your customers, listings that you have, it all becomes what it is. I always use my example. If you're a doctor, like you're a doctor, it's because you went to medical school, and you studied journals, you treated patients. So you think of being a doctor most of the time, so you become a doctor.
Yeah.
You don't notice mega billion opportunities or other things in life because that's what you think of most of the time.
Right. And, it's interesting that you do talk about feelings because Patrick and I are both life coaches. And many times, so I coach other doctors. And in medicine, you're trained how to suppress your feelings, deny your feelings, because you have to be able to do that, obviously, to maintain that professional stance and that distance. But then we take it into the other areas of our lives. And then there's that disconnect between our thoughts and our emotions. And some people actually either deny their emotions or don't even know how to access emotions. And so I do recognize then that holds a lot of people back, because there is so much wisdom in the body, in those emotions, and that is the fuel that pushes our actions forward. So you provide such a great example of that yes, you do have to be in touch with those emotions so
Mhm.
that they can guide and direct you into the next actions that you should take.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick here, I'd like to mention one of your keys, Ramy. When
Mhm.
you find words that inspire you to a greater future, keep them in the front of your mind at all times. And I wrote in your book
Mhm.
underneath that 3 of my go-tos, and one of them you kind of mentioned already, but a quitter never wins and a winner never quits. That stays in my mind. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And what you think about comes about, right?
Right.
I use those all the time. And that's, yeah, I really wanted to get into this. You've done many interviews now, and what we wanted to get into with you is, the mindset and all these. There's so much gold in your book, Ramy. I'm just, as you can see, I'm like just super excited about and feel so grateful that we get to talk to you about all of this.
Absolutely.
I'm excited. It is true. Like the good thing about I love Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich was a book that propelled me, and I tell people to read that book and then mine because. But the difference between my book and Think and Grow Rich is Napoleon Hill interviewed all these people and got all their wisdom and how they built the success. I mean, he was brought in by Andrew Carnegie. In 20 years, he interviewed and wrote this really great book. But at first, he wrote a 12-volume kind of book, and then nobody wanted to read 12 volumes, and he condensed the 12 volumes into one book. And but to put 12 volumes of words into one book, he made every word count, every sentence count. And so like this, you could reread it over and over again. You get something new every time. And then when you're ready for that information, sometimes you're not ready for that information yet. When you reread it, that information kind of pops up at you. So I wanted to do the same thing. So my book is an easy read of 177 pages, but I could have wrote 1,000 books of every experience. I could write a book of all the things I achieved. So I condensed it the same way Napoleon Hill did into where you could read it over and over and get something new every time you read it, because every sentence, every word was planned out. So it's pretty powerful. And the difference also between my book and Napoleon Hill's book, which is, again, I love Napoleon Hill's book, is he didn't live it. I took his principles and lived it every day for 48 years and went through all the struggles. So my point of view is of the doer instead of the watcher, and the experience is different. And that's why I added an additional 28 keys, and I could add it more. And my perspective is different than Napoleon Hill, because I had to live and suffer it and understand it and put it into practice. And that's why I love what Don Green says, that Napoleon Hill told him one day somebody's going to come along and surpass his book and show how he applied the principles and become. And that's why he endorses the book, because he thinks that that's the next step. And I think the same also, because I read and I hear from a lot of people, and I see people climb Kilimanjaro because I read the book, or change their lives instantly and stuff like that. It's that powerful book. And then back to your, I just want to touch about the emotional part. And I know it's separating emotion, like if you're in a doctor in a hospital and you're operating and a patient dies, and you have to go speak to the family about what happened to their family member, you have to detach your emotion. And that's kind of important in that moment, but you should take that emotion and those feelings and apply it. And decisions are made by emotion. Like if anybody has time, they should look at a Simon Sinek TED Talk. It's about 18 minutes if anybody has seen it, but it's true. He spells it out, and I've always believed it's decisions are made from back of your mind, not the logical part of your mind, through the emotional. You don't know why you made that decision, but you made a decision because how it affected you emotionally. So a buying decision, any kind of decision. I mean, it goes at the end, this video talks about Martin Luther King, which back then in the 60s, there was no internet, there was no real communication, but how did he get to almost 350,000 people at the same spot, same place, same time, without people knowing? People build a network because they were emotionally charged with it. They showed up, and like what he said on the thing, how many showed up for him? And he said 0. They all showed up for themselves, what they believed how America should be and everything else. So that was the emotional drive for people, And so emotion is such an important part of it. And I talk a little bit about it, and some people object to it or feel it as bad. I said, even if you were a child that was abused, and that's women actually have more power, because if you could take that emotion of how bad that felt at the same time when you're thinking about your goals, that emotion will open up your mind to find the opportunity. So I don't see negatives. There's nothing good or bad. It just is. And it's really bad things that happen that drives you to do great things. I mean, if you think about the Great Depression and World War II, America was 14th in the world. Because of the Great Depression and World War II, America drove itself and made every factory a military factory. It changed the world and became the #1 power and stayed that way after that. But that had to happen. The Great World War II had to happen, all those negatives, for America to become as great as it is today. So you can't look at anything that's bad that happens as a negative. And one of the things Napoleon Hill says, and I'm sure you read the quote many times, is through every adversity is seed of equal greater benefit. And I always found it in my life. So no matter what bad happens, there's always something good that comes out of it at the end.
I was going to say that, because going through your book, you reach the top and then you'd lose it and then you'd reach it, get it back again. And so in those low points, was that one of those words that was playing in front of your mind? I know that I'm going through this, and it's just building seeds. I'm planting seeds for an even greater success, because I'm going through this difficult time. For 7 years, you were fighting the government, and were you thinking every seed, every seed of adversity?
Yeah, no, you should take the negative and propel it. I mean, the reason why I think it drove me at the beginning, I was a kid that was everybody beat up on and everything else, had no friends, no nothing. So adversity is a really good thing. Imagine, look at the kids who was very popular in the football team, had all the girls and everything. They didn't have to try hard because they were already accepted and loved and had all the girls and stuff. So when they get into the real world, they never had to struggle or had to achieve anything more. And most of those people ended up living steady and ordinary life, never achieved anything great because it came too easy for them, the popularity and stuff. So I'd rather start out the way I did, being rejected and wanting to prove to the world that I could achieve great things. So anything negative and everything I've ever tried, people tell, oh, it's impossible. Like when I went after the show, you'll never get close to them. I take criticism now as a fuel to do more. A lot of people get stopped by criticism, and that's one of the things Napoleon Hill says. No one fear is fear of criticism, and that should be something they should totally ignore, because if those people could achieve anything, you got to look at the source of where it came from. It's so you got to build strength inside yourself because of the experiences you had, that you could achieve all these things. That's why I can go broke and broke again, and I know that I've done it before and I could do it again. It's just so it's really. So again, nothing bad or is good. It's just a journey. You have to take the journey and try to win the game. And it's a chess game too. It's not it's on the checkers or stuff. I mean, you have to think 20, 30 moves ahead, and you got to plan it out, think about it, and think of every possibility that can happen. And then when things happen, you just deal with it at the time. And if you bring in the negative thoughts and fear, which is what kills you, then you can't think clearly, that you can't plan ahead. So you have to have a clear thought, and a clear thought comes with getting rid of any fear that you have, and then fear of loss, fear of poverty, all the fears that Napoleon Hill lists, and then get rid of all the alibis. I know Napoleon Hill ended the book with all the alibis. I started the book with all the alibis, so that people understand that I've had all those alibis and 100 times more, and I'm still able to achieve it. So there's no excuses in the world to not succeed.
So you mentioned the bullying and the intimidating, and I'm looking here in the book here, and it says right after that you wrote, those years also instilled a powerful motivation to achieve as much as possible in my life. And the thing, after reading it and all the interviews you've done, the thing that you mentioned quite frequently is creating that extraordinary life. I was curious as to when and how that, I'm going to have an extraordinary life. When did that really start to kick in?
It was right away for me. I mean, once I read and left, I knew my destiny and where I was at. I mean, I just went out. I knew the Think and Grow Rich says you can't get rich working for somebody else. I've only had 2 jobs when I was under 16 for a couple of weeks, and went to buy that one car, and then hell, when I forgot what it was. But I never worked for anybody. I'd rather work for myself and build what it was, or sleep in the streets. And so I knew that's how to build an extraordinary life. And then I went to a Glenn Turner meeting, and I saw how people mapped up. He did a really good job showing how the average person starts at 18, they get a car, and then they have to get a job, pay for the car, insurance, and get an apartment, and then the furniture, and they build that up, and then they meet Miss Susie Wright or so, and then the house, the second car, the kids. And now you're in everybody, if you don't reverse it, the fear of loss is greater than hope of gain. So when you're in there and you're afraid to lose the little things that you have, your house, your little job, and everything else, then you're living 9 to 5, and then you watch TV, have dinner, live for the weekend, once a year, vacation, and you repeat that pattern till you retire in your 60s or 70s, and you die a few years later. That scared me to death. I said, that's not the life I want to live. And that's how most people live here in America, if you're even lucky. So I said, okay, I'm going to reverse all that and make my hope of gain greater than any fear of loss. So I always risk it all because I don't fear of losing anything. So I'm able to achieve more. So I don't care if I had, even if I was sleeping in the street and had that 50 million, I went after Khashoggi, went to lose it all after my struggle of from 18 to 20, 12 to 23, 11 years of struggle, to give it all up, to go after and burn all my bridges, all my ships, to go after the goal I had. So you have to build and reverse that. It takes a little bit of time to start slowly taking little things and make them less important, and then you can start getting rid of all the fears, and you could go after things. I mean, it's scary for a lot of people because they don't want to lose their comfortable house or their jobs that's paying them well, or they have a family and stuff, but it's a decision that everybody has to make, what kind of life they want to live.
Yeah, and I like how you said that, burning your ships. I mean, because right, once you said, you get into this identity and this mindset that this is who I am. And then the idea of taking that, like you intentionally went into that, burning your ships, selling everything for a fire sale pace, but at the end you had that vision that you wanted to work with Khashoggi.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
and
it's
that's
in Think and Grow Rich too, about the general who had his ships burned, and he was outnumbered 10 to 1, and he told the soldiers, look, those ships are burnt, there's no way off, unless you win this battle, you're dead. So they ended up winning the battle. So it's really, if you leave yourself no retreat, because a lot of people do things and they have a fallback position. Well, I'll still have this job, I'll do this on the side, and stuff like that, and they'll never go very far with it. But again, it's good for some people if they're happy with that, and I'm not gonna say no to them. I mean, there's only so many leaders and so successful people, but I like to shift to see more. I mean, if I could turn it from 1% to 2%, 1% of 8 billion is another, what, 80 million people. That'd be successful. So that'd be nice to see if I could change and make an extra 80 million people extremely rich. I mean, just a slight shift makes a big difference. And
where does faith come in though? Because at some point you have to have faith, right? That you're going to throw yourself out there. You're going to put yourself out there, trusting, right? Did you trust that it was going to work out? Or was it just a day-to-day practice of putting yourself out there and trusting? Like, because you talk about how success builds upon itself. Like the
Right.
more success you get, the more confident you become.
Right.
So yeah, what is?
Well, first you have to have faith that the principles work. I mean, it's just a universal truth, and it lasted the test of time, and it works. So first you gotta have faith, and then you got to build faith in yourself. And that's why I say, if you take little things and succeed in a very little goal, then you build another goal and you succeed, then you see it works and you have faith in that. I never talk about faith in God or stuff. It's just it's faith in yourself. And faith in what really the universe does provide. It's amazing. I see a lot of documentaries on the universe. It fascinates me. There's a new one that is on Netflix now, and it really points out how we're all connected. We're made out of the same materials as the rest of the universe, down in the subparticles and stuff, our genes, everything's made out of the same thing. So we're all connected to the universe, and it's amazing how the universe does give us what we need when we need it. And when you desire something, and I give examples of like Einstein. He wanted to figure out the universe, and because he was so passionate, had a lot of feelings. He was a clerk, and he even slept in his office and stuff. But he built a lot of feelings behind. He was able to, because he focused on, able to see the curvature of the universe in his mind. Imagine that, being able to see the curvature of the universe and mathematically write it out before anybody can prove it. And it took scientists 12 years. They wanted to disprove his theories to finally get the telescope, the right timing to measure it. And when they measured it, he was right on, spotted by the millimeter that the universe was curved. And he saw it in his mind, as mean that the universe does give you all the information. And one of the things, like I saw The Secret, they say, oh yeah, but put the intentions out. But Jack Canfield was the only one in that show that presented the action that it needed. He put it in there, and its opportunities started coming about, and he took advantage of those opportunities. So whatever you decide, just like the Coral Castle, the universe will give it to you. So it's like your radio. And whatever you decide to tune in, 90.6 is to become a great physicist, 90.8 become a great doctor, 99.7 is to become an extremely wealthy person. So by tuning it in and putting the emotion and letting the universe give it to you, and then again, your signal becomes more powerful the more emotions you mix with it. So you get the information. You just now have to take action. So you build faith by seeing it work and believing in yourself that you can. So even when I was down in the last part of the book, down to my last $21, I was totally broke. And finally, when I got off all those stupid drugs, antidepressant doctor you got, my mind was 100% clear and was able to really tune into what I needed to really build that. And I wrote 100 pages in the hospital and built the plan of where I was going to be at, where I was going to achieve in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years. And I achieved all of them and exceeded the things that I did because I decided that I was going to do it. So everything is a decision. Failure or success is a decision. You made a decision to make that happen.
Nice.
I love the icon story. I would love to be the fly on the wall that was there when it's just all, you talk about how scrappy he was and how you just laughed it off. I just love that.
Repeatedly. That didn't hurt your spirit at all. Just
No, because I knew the kind of person he was, and everybody else would cower down. Again, it's fear for people get afraid of him because how powerful and how hardcore he is. And I wasn't afraid of him. It was just, I saw him. I saw my levels just as his, and it's just his way. And I know if he kept on growling, eventually he'll calm down, because I know it's more of a facade than what his real life really is. So he needed to build that facade to scare people into what he did. He bought stock, scared management that he's going to take him over and they'd buy him out for more money. So he built that facade for himself for a lifetime of what he was doing. So it just became his second nature. So just breaking down that and knowing what's the worst thing's going to happen. He's going to yell at you and call you some names and maybe call the police, throw you out. I don't know. It was to me, the risk reward, what I would win if I broke through that, was a lot bigger than what the fears I might have of what he's going to do.
Yeah, it sounds like you kept your mind focused on what it is that you were looking to accomplish, and all this minor, noise that was going on with him. You just let that all just like roll off your shoulders. And
yeah,
because after a while I could only yell so much and say something. He'll run out of stuff.
And it makes me think about the mastermind principle. Like even two people can form a mastermind.
Yeah, it's always creates a third mind. Two people together creates a third mind. And that's why the greatest work ever written by Grace was a constitution. And now those 6 or 7 people got together and wrote the greatest paper ever written and created a government and a way of a rule that create this country. And now capitalism and the way the constitution, and it's only 200 to 300 years this country is old. And look at what we achieved compared to thousands of years. because of what that constitution was. And that was the greatest mastermind ever put together of these people who wanted to write something and create a nation that was going to be for the people, and how they can make a great country. And so masterminds are very important. Definitely two people or more will always create another mind.
I mean, I imagine you create masterminds in your businesses and in your companies, right? But it was interesting in that in your very first you said the person that helped you, was it Ferris? Earl Ferris
Earl
was
Ferris.
the one who helped you, but he never, like, I'm just thinking he was in your presence, he obviously saw something in you and believed in you and supported you, but yet could he not do that for himself? Like, I just figured, like, when they, in the Bible, they say people touched the clothes of Jesus and they were blessed, and so do you see that with other people that you kind of mentor, or as you create a mastermind with, and what made the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I create mastermind like every company I start. My leadership team is basically a mastermind, talking about or is that, so they follow, I inspire them, and we bounce off ideas. Like one of my companies, EV Mobility, right now is my CEO is, I talk to her all the time and and she executes and stuff like that. And back with Earl did see something in me. I was in a Glen Turner meeting, and it was the first time I ever spoke. I don't know why. He invited all these people, it was a multi-level, to speak at the end in the experience. And I was so inspired because Glen Turner read Think and Grow Rich. So I don't know, I don't remember his speech, but I remember being up there holding an American flag and giving this speech. And I had like a group of people who just wanted to be part of what I was going to do. And Earl was one of them. So I inspired him. But Earl was very, like, he grew flowers and sold to flower shops. He was like but he helped me as much as he can, hoping to reach that dream. And again, it wasn't an easy journey stuff, but because he did that, you can't forget the people who really helped you. I took care of him till the day he died. So at the end, I took care of paying him. He ended up going to nursing home, so I took care of that until the day he died. So when you have people that help you, I'm always, or you break into a circle, you have to do it with the best intentions. I'm not going to use them up and then throw. You have to follow through that you're going to become the best person to him and close to him. So everybody in the past has ever helped me, I've always taken care of for the rest of time. So it has to be sincere, or it doesn't work out, because so all these guys who try to con people and all the Bernie Madoffs and stuff like that, at the end it just falls apart on them. Everything, Think and Grow Rich says everything has to be built on truth and honesty, or it doesn't last. So that's what I strive for on everything, and go beyond also. So I don't go and say, okay, I'm going to strategize with that man, I'm going to work with also his circle, get around his circle, get to know him and all that, and forget about him. But I helped all his circle, and they're still close friends of mine. So
nice. The van business, Ramy. Oh my God, talk about risk tolerance. That, where you were like frantically driving back 5 minutes to 2, here's the check. My risk tolerance, I would never have been able to do that.
Well, I was in the streets, and I had no choice of either do this, risk going to jail for writing about $250,000 check, or it does pay off and I get my next start. So again, you have to live without fear, do some things that, sometimes great, but you don't hurt anybody with it. So
did you give it much thought though about, man, I could go to jail for this, holy cow, did I like overdo it this time, or what were your thoughts on that?
The thoughts was, I was presented where I was trying to start a car business, buying a car from one auction to the other, and that was failing, and the guy who invested in me was going to lose his money. So when he presented, the gentleman wanted to buy these shells to build custom vans. I just automatically said, I could find it for you, just automatically. And then when I found it, then I realized, oh, okay, now I got to pay for these fans to sell to them. So it just was in the moment. But then okay, do I take the risk and stuff? And then I assess, you assess things. Okay, back then there wasn't where you could check everything electronically. I made sure I went on the Saturdays. I can't check it, but check it is good. And I also called the banker, and he told me I have till Tuesday at 2:00, and I knew I could get to the auction before 2:00 on Tuesday and get back to the bank and cover. So it was calculated risk. that I was gonna take to go to the next level, because it was the opportunity that was presented to me when I was trying to succeed. So I just took advantage, took action on it. But at the end, it was because of that. I ended up taking that one van, sold it to a dealership, and saw they made 6,000 instead of 600, and then I inspired me to open up a dealership. And then back in the book, I always put who wins if you win. Then I realized that the people who build vans would win if they had their own dealership. So I went to Hartwell, Georgia, and talked to the manufacturer into giving me $1 million to open up the first dealership and give me all the van supplies I needed. And then within 6 months, I had 6 dealerships and insurance companies, and made the 50 million. So it's all taking advantage of the opportunities, figure out, and you think about it, all the possibilities that happen, but don't be afraid of it too.
Yeah, I like that idea of, I think I wrote it down too. Yeah, you are selling what someone else will gain. And you said you're racking my brain trying to think of who would benefit. So I like the idea of selling where you're thinking about, your focus is on how the other person wins by what you are selling. And I think that's a really powerful approach to it.
Yeah, what good is it? Like you say, you sell real estate, and you approach a guy who only invests in technology, but you're trying to sell him a income generating property. It's a hard sell. That's not his thing. But if you go to a person that buys income generating property, it's a lot easier to convince them why you should buy that property. So why waste your time selling to somebody that really doesn't care? It's a much bigger uphill battle. There's not that many people who get out of the comfort zone or will take the risk to do something.
Now, can I ask, what was it? So when you look for a mentor, because, in the book, you highlight John Gray and then Khashoggi and Icahn. What was it, or is there one specific attribute or characteristic that you see in someone that really attracts you or gives you that drive to, like, I want to work with this person, or I got to work with this person?
Yeah, like why Khashoggi? Why Icahn? Why do I approach, John Gray? All of that.
Is it the same now? Like, as you think about your next venture?
Right. I don't look at him as mentor. The only person that was a mentor was Khashoggi, and it was because I saw the lifestyles of rich and famous, and it was a 1 hour special they did, and they never did an hour special. And it wasn't the things what dazzled me wasn't the 7 jets and 35 homes and his lifestyle. Is when they got into the multi-billion-dollar deals he was structuring, how he traveled the world, made shit happen. It was his business, what he did. He was a head of state without a state. That was what attracted me, and that's the life I wanted to have. Like, so when I went after him, and took him 2 years to find him, another 2 years to convince him, I had in mind that I wanted to be that person, and then I ended up working with him for 10 years. But all the other people, like I know Donald Sterling and all these, or Carl Icahn, I take bits and pieces that I see that are good, and I make it part of what I am. Like the negative parts, I don't need to have. So now, as I meet people or understand what they do in business and stuff, I take the very best of what they are and make myself part of that. So Adnan was the bulk of who I am, but then Carl Icahn, I learned a few things about public companies, corporate rating and stuff, and how he'd use intimidation. So I take that little piece to use if I need it. Or Donald Sterling, he never sells anything. He holds and buys and stuff, and he has a way of doing a certain way of business. So everybody just got to look and see what you can learn from him. And if it's really good and what made his success, you have to take that part. Because the rest of it is usually not that great or the same and stuff. But Adnan was the only real mentor, because I learned how to become a more worldly person and learn how to deal with it. And it was a life that I like, and that's why I decided that part of the 5-year plan was to eventually take over what Adnan did, because I was close to him. I did it with him for 10 years, and nobody ever took over. So he died 5 years ago, and I remember there was a Facebook post I put in, and I said, before the end of the year, I'm going to do what Adnan did. And so now I've been to Guyana 3 years and I'm doing what he did. And I did achieve it before the end of the year. Now I've established a relationship with the president and everybody there to become what he was. So I'm slowly shifting from all my American businesses and taking them public and become the international businessman that Adnan was. So again, that's a goal. I decided, had a lot of motion, and I posted, and you always have to make it real. Like I posted that about doing that, and then I talked to some people and figured Guyana was the best place to start. To just discover the largest oil reserves in 50 years and stuff. So I even created a present for the president because his name was Muhammad Ephraim Ali. So I created a big poster with a picture of Muhammad Ali and this president, and had a signed glove by Muhammad Ali on there, and said he was a great fighter, you're a great president, you have a lot of life. And I had that present sitting in my office and looked at it for 6 months before I met him, knowing I'm going to give it to him one day. So by creating reality of it, and I ended up giving it to him a month and a half ago and started building the relationship with him. So you have to create it in your mind that it's real for it to become real.
Nice.
I'm thinking the extraordinary life piece really started to kick in when you watch that lifestyles episode. You're like, wow, that looks like an extraordinary life. I'll take that.
Yeah. A lot of people will believe having 50 million and the best house in Tampa and the greatest sports car was an extraordinary life. But then when I watched that, I said, boy, I don't have shit. So it changed. I said, I stopped short. That's the life I wanted. So, but to different people, extraordinary lives are different. I mean, different things. I mean, not to have to worry about living paycheck and having, a few million in the bank is an extraordinary life for people, and traveling all over the world is extraordinary. So different people have extraordinary lives, but at least achieve the things that you want to achieve and not put in limitations. I just have bigger goals than most people, so I'm a little crazy. So
What are like your morning routines that really kind of give you or keep you at that competitive edge, in terms of the landscape and competition? And do you have any?
I think it's a mindset, but I do get up pretty early, 4 or 5 in the morning. So I have a good solid 4 hours of planning things, answering the emails and stuff. And it's kind of proven people who succeed wake up earlier, because they're not, if you're waking up just to go to the job at 9 o'clock, actually time rules you. You're a slave to what's going on. But if you have a 4 and you have your comfort of doing what you need to do, and I sleep only 2-3 hours a night because it's just, my mind thinks so much. So I'm just working. My mind is figuring out solutions, new goals, new things, new ways of doing things. So by the time I wake up, I'm starting to execute. So it's right away executing the things, saying the email, doing the things, doing the research, doing the stuff that you need to do. So like I said in one of the things, and I saw it on a video on Think and Grow Rich, and it's true. If you look at it, if you live to the average age of 77, from the day you're born to 77, you only have 23,000 days to live. So at my age, at 61, I only have like 3,000 days left. So I don't want to waste a single day because it counts down. Some people lowered it down to you only have 15 summers left. So why are you going to waste a single day not achieving the things? I mean, being angry at somebody, watching TV all day, you just wasted a day, and not working towards the things that you want out of life. You've wasted another day, and you have such a short time on Earth. I mean, dinosaurs lived 170 million years on Earth. The world is 5 billion years old. The universe is 13 billion or something like that. Humans have only lived 100,000 years, and our lifespan is only 100 years. And we're a little dot in our planet, in our Milky Way, where there's billions of Milky Way. We are so insignificant, and our lives are so short. And if you think about all the people who died, all the billions of people who died 100 years ago that you don't care about or think about, are you going to be worried about anything? Or even if I drive down the highway, I'm here in LA with 405, you see tens of thousands of cars. If you look at every window, if you really focus on it, every person has a life and a problem and stuff. You do, so everybody has life. And so you got to get rid of all the fears and worries, because you do have a short time, and focus. I don't know what the purpose of life is, but it's definitely not to worry and live as a victim. So you might as well do something different. And and see, maybe it is, we're part of the universe. You create greater energy. It attracts a lot of things when you're positive and succeeding and stuff. So maybe when you do pass away, your energy does dissipate something better than just being fizzled out to nothing. I know. I haven't figured out the purpose yet, but I'm getting there.
Dead for 20 minutes. You're not going to
Yeah.
believe this, Ramy, but there's a gal, I go to the gym and she does pool work, and she turns to me one day and she goes, you know, I was dead for 20 minutes. Now I know 2 people that were dead for 20 minutes. Can you tell us about that incredible story of how that all came about and the prescription drugs and all of that? And man, that had to be such incredible that you overcame all of that. Because your head, if you're at 5%, like you say,
Yeah.
like, wow, how do you dig out of that one? Right.
Well, that's why, you know, when I was battling the government, that's why people, you know, this doctor thought I should be on antidepressant stuff to handle the stress better because I was facing 100 years in jail, and they were absolutely wrong, and I would not settle with them because I don't just give up when there's no truth behind anything. So it was a script happy doctor who ended up losing his license, but he ended up writing 20 different medications I was taking at the time, which was, it numbed me so much. He thought of it. So it got to where, you know, I took so much that one night I overdosed on it. And so I did die for 20 minutes. They did actually declare me dead. They were going to bring up, but then they kept the machines going and they kept on going. I came back, but I have to say, there's no light, there's no other side, there's no nothing. It was like you went to sleep and woke up. So there's, and nobody's proven there's anything on the other side. So still, you don't know what happens if you die. But it's definitely it definitely was an experience to wake me up. So once I got out of the hospital a few weeks later, you know, I just went cold turkey because I said, this is not the path. I need to get back where I was at. And that's where also a brutal, which I'm glad for the experience. For 3 months it took to get all those drugs out of the system. And I was walking the streets, you know, police, when they stop you, they didn't do any crime. So they sent to mental institutions. So I went to 3 mental institutions in those 3 months because, but I said, they're watching everything, they let you go. And by the last one, the systems were coming out, the drugs were coming in my systems. And I saw myself going from 5% thinking capacity to go slowly 32, where by the last few days, I was at 100% back where I was at, and I was able to see my future, where I was going to do. So I knew when I left, I already had a plan how to re-succeed. So went from being that destitute down $21. That's why I took pictures of it, because I knew I was going to come back and being and dying and be able to rebuild everything I did in that short period of time, because most people in a lifetime couldn't build what I built, but I just made a decision that that's a time limit and I was going to do it. But it's that's why that book is really important so people can see that if I could achieve those. And I wasn't anybody extraordinary. I was a 12-year-old kid, left home, you know, Egyptian background, had enough prejudice, you know, didn't have any connections, people, money, family, education, but I still was able to do everything I did in life. And so that's why I wanted to send that message, so people could take that, compare their lives, and say, okay, I've suffered through a lot. Do you think maybe not as much? And look at what he succeeded. I shouldn't make excuses not to succeed. And yeah, don't want to cut this too short. I just want to let you know I have in 8 minutes have another Zoom call on a refinery I'm building in Guyana. So
Nice.
I knew we have 8 minutes.
I just wanted to mention, looking at you and your beautiful wife. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
I actually posted on Facebook the other day, and I'll just read what it says here, that you wanted to end this chapter reminding that the principles of Think and Grow Rich, and this is one of my favorite parts. I'm so glad that you made this point, that can be applied to every aspect of your life, not just to attain wealth. So you can achieve whatever it is you set your goal on. What do you want to have in your life? Do you want to have better relationships? Do you want to have, you know, less fear? Whatever your mind, what you set your mind to, whatever you focus on is what you can have.
Yeah. I mean, I use the same principle. That battle with the government for 7 years, most people would gave up. They couldn't handle the pressure or the stuff that the government goes straight to you. We win 98% of the year. time, and that's why they take a 4-year deal instead of but I fought them to the very end, and at the end I found out there was a crooked FBI agent. Same with the passage of meeting somebody you fell in love with, and how long it took to get convinced. So it's really anything that you want that you build in life. So it doesn't have to be money, but most people it is money, but money buys a lot of freedom, a lot of hours, a lot of things that you need to do. But it is important that it's just whatever you want, that those principles work.
We're going to have to leave it there. Matt,
Okay.
thank you so much for your
Awesome.
time.
I really appreciate
This
it.
has
too.
been, this is
Yes.
definitely going to go down as one of, if you talk about bucket lists, this is going to be on there for me. It's going to be right at the top. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any
You're welcome.
parting words for our listeners just before you scurry off to your
we'll
next?
be off to the next deal.
Yeah, it's so easy to become a victim, because if you on the most relaxed mode, you become a victim, the negative comes in. It takes work, it takes effort to think positively, and because you've been bombarded your whole life with all the negative stuff. It doesn't take one reading. It takes a constant, because everybody can have positive thinking, but positive thinking is just like a thin layer around all this negative thoughts that you have. So that's why you can get inspired for a day, and then a few days later you're exposed to the world, and then you're back to the same routine. So it's something you have to reread, refill your mind all the time to get deeper and deeper into the layer of your mind. So your mind, second nature, now thinks in a positive way of achieving things. So don't just take listening to this one podcast or reading one book and think your life is going to change. It's going to take a lot more than that. It's really just feeding your mind, because you have to change a lifetime of negative thoughts. So, and that's the only way you get out of that victim mentality.
Awesome. So I remember that from Ariana Huffington's book, she says people remember to charge their phones. They got to remember to charge their minds on the regular.
All right. That's it for this episode of Think and Grow. Join us on our next Booking It episode, where we're going to be featuring and talking all about Think and Grow Rich to keep the story going.
Keep the story going. Awesome. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Ramy, and loved meeting you. And maybe one day we'll meet you in person.
Absolutely.
All right. And as always, thank
Thanks.
you in advance.
Just thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing, yeah. Just thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing, yeah.